You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tusaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again to commence our broadcast week here on the Options Insider Radio Network, kicking things off with the show that is number one out there to a lot of you, according to a lot of podcast lists out there. Folks like yourselves, the Option Block. We're happy to oblige you twice a week out there, every Monday, every Thursday. You know it's available on pretty much every platform under the sun. The numbers are telling us that. But of course, if you want to go above and beyond, join us live. You can always join us in the secret club for this. For everything we got going on throughout the week, great pro Q&As, options oddities. Looks like I'm going to be wearing some Oatly after Friday's sympathy trade with the Rock Lobster out there. We'll keep an eye on all that fun stuff and a whole bunch more live shows throughout the week, giveaways, cool stuff, theoptionsinsider.com/secret club. And of course, if you're listening on demand, all we ask is that you rate and review. It really does help all these new folks continue to discover not just this show, but everything else we do here on the old network. And of course, keeping us up those questions, those comments, those insights, those pearls of wisdom. We do love to hear from all of you folks out there. And before we hear from who we're hearing from on the old show today, by the way, we're a man down. Got the old notice right before the show. Every parent dreads the old sick kid alert for Uncle Mike. So he has to go pick up his kid at the school. So no Uncle Mike, unfortunately, today. So we shall struggle on. One less person to guess also for our 80s wrestler kickoff. We're going to do something a little bit different today. I can see our chat is already asking for this. So our chat, I love our secret club folks. They're so on the ball. You guys are ahead of the game already because today is going to be a little bit different. We're going to keep it in the wrestling oeuvre, but we're going to go a little bit beyond the 80s, but not too far because this person actually debuted. I looked it up right before the showtime. This person debuted in 92. Now, I will come out and admit right now, this person not really in my wheelhouse, not a wrestler I was that familiar with. I've learned about his role later in the 90s, kind of being part of that big era of WWF, then becoming WWE, then, of course, WCW and all that back and forth. Him and one of his partners out there would become kind of infamous along the lines out there. But he kicked things off in the WWF, and this is his music. Can you guess this 80s adjacent wrestler? right. I guess it kind of goes like that for a while. Not exactly the most memorable of themes. Maybe why he didn't make a huge splash, at least to me. Of course, I was kind of already phasing out of WWF at the time, at the point before I would get lured back in kind of infamously in the late 90s when I came to Chicago to start trading in the firm I was trading with. We had box seats at the United Center, so I got to see, of course, I was very fortunate to see the second portion of the three-peat, a lot of those games with Jordan and Rodman and all those fun. But also, those guys like, hey, wrestling's coming. We should go see it. And I was like, what, wrestling? I had kind of lost the thread at that point. So I got to see Hulk and Goldberg. I think it was a WCW show at the time. So it was interesting, and it kind of made me more aware of what was going on with the Stone Cold stuff and all that stuff of that era. But this guy kind of definitely part of all that stuff. And now I am pleased to say we are joined by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. A, welcome to the show, sir. And B, can you recall this person who had a large impact on the industry, even if his early days in WWF maybe not as noteworthy?
I could not hear the music, but I wanted to, I want to take a guess and say that it is not Stone Cold Steve Austin, but Stunning Steve Austin, his previous persona. That was who I was thinking you were going to play. So that is my guess.
No, that is not the guess. You can't hear the music. Now, let me just check. You should be able to hear the music. I'll tell you what, I'll do a real quick run to see if you can hear it this time. Ready? 3, 2, 1. That's all you get. That's unfortunate. It's not the most memorable of themes. Could you hear it this time, sir?
Yeah, I could. I have no idea who that is.
Yeah, this is more of a, I guess you can call it thematically appropriate / sad one our chat's asking for. This is Razor Ramon. He's apparently on death's door as we speak. He apparently had hip surgery this weekend, and it went horribly wrong, and he had multiple heart attacks, and now he is on life support. And so he's been trending on Twitter kind of all weekend. Looks like they're about to pull the plug on him, unfortunately. So yet another wrestler of that 80s and 80s adjacent era who is moving on to the great beyond. So it's not the most memorable of themes.
Razor Ramon.
Are you familiar with Razor Ramon? Yeah?
Yes. Him and Nash were...
Yeah, him and Kevin Nash. Yeah, apparently Kevin Nash is just distraught and beside himself right now.
I don't blame him. That would be very sad. I was a big fan of that guy. Yeah, no, that's terrible.
Any enduring memories of Razor Ramon, sir, before we roll on?
The toothpick was the best. I'm sorry. That whole persona was awesome. And that is truly a loss if we're going to lose him, because he was great. I'm not kidding you.
It is funny. Like, a lot of his gimmick is like the toothpick. You're right. It's very simple. But it was, I guess, effective back then. Again, I wasn't
it was great.
And apparently, when they showed up on WCW, apparently still kind of keeping their gimmicks. That was kind of a big deal. It was kind of like the first time people really crossed over from the WWF into a competing promotion. And they kind of walked on, like they left one night and they kind of came on, apparently WCW, like the very next night. Yeah, pretty much being he still had the toothpick and everything. And it was a huge deal at the time for, wow, look, people
the Razor's Edge. That was the name of his finishing move as Razor Ramon was the Razor's Edge.
Well, there we go. A little bit of a sad one. Our chat, again, always ahead of me there, saying, hey, we need to have Razor Ramon today. So, yes, we were on the same page as we keep on rolling. Let's hopefully maybe we can get a little bit more uplifting note here as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down what's lighting it up out there in the broad markets, what is dominating our tape today. And it's, again, another weird one. It was looking inauspicious for much of the early session, and certainly overseas. Asia really coming under it over there, having their pretty much worst time right now since the 2008 financial crisis, off of the news of another wave of massive lockdowns there in throughout much of Asia. Even massive factories like Foxconn forced to shut down, something like 30 million people right now in China are under lockdown. They cannot leave their homes, which, think about that here in the U.S., what kind of outcry, hue and cry there would be. People get mad if you just ask them to wear a mask, let alone you say you can't leave your house. It would be absolute bedlam here in the U.S. But hey, an authoritarian regime, they can do that kind of thing. And so China locking down and their markets taking it on the chin. Of course, a broad Western market spooked by that, and also by the notion that maybe Russia dialing things up a little bit there in the Ukraine, bombing some areas a few miles from the Polish border. And we all know once you go into Poland, that's NATO, and then kind of all bets are off. So people a little bit spooked by that. But Russia obviously trying to stem the flow of arms from the West coming in through the Western border there between Poland and Ukraine. So a lot of action there to kind of spook the markets out there right now. And we're seeing that kind of across the board, even though not maybe as much as you might think. The market, we're still having kind of one of those mixed sessions out there. In fact, as we kicked off the show, we had Dow slightly up about 0.25%. So Dow managing to buck the trend, while the S&P was off a little over 0.5%, about 0.55%, shy of the 4,200 level. Let's see, how low do we get out there this morning? That looks like we're pretty much right around the lows right now. We got down about 41.77 or so before bouncing off of that, right around 41.82 or so right now. NASDAQ, as it is wont to do, leading the charge, off nearly 2%, about 1.85% out there. So a lot of things popping off out there from an overall vol perspective. Let's run the table out there right now. That's up a full point, just trying to re-rack the numbers so we can get the latest numbers for you out there, listeners. And coming in to kick off the start of the show, we had VIX right about a 32 handle. That puts it down, but ever so slightly, about 0.25 point from where it was on Thursday's show. VVIX, so the vol was at about a 121. That puts it down about 7 points. Looks like we're getting some vol back here as that future starts to get a little juicy again. Getting some vol back here in VXX right now as well. It's up about 1.5 points just in the last hour or so. It was down to about 26.25 coming into start of the showtime, about 27.75. That puts it actually up about 0.5 point or so on the week. Let's re-rack UVXY as well, because UVXY was at about a 20. Now looking at about a 20.5. That puts it down about 0.25 point. So yeah, we're getting a lot of vol back. Not a lot, but a decent amount of vol, as you would expect. And vol Q at about a 35 when we kicked off the show. It's up a full point. Again, NASDAQ's been pretty frothy of late, so not exactly surprising out there. Mr. Meatball, a lot to unpack. Asia and lockdown turmoil. Europe starting to feel a little bit more tremors from this apparently escalating conflict there in Ukraine. Meanwhile, U.S. markets, as they are wont to do, are kind of all over the place, sir. What's your take today?
Yeah, the Dow's kind of being held up by the fact that, it is price weighted. So its two biggest components are United Healthcare and Goldman Sachs, and both of which, the financials were up earlier today. They still are. Goldman was up. United Healthcare is having a strong day. The weakness is in the NASDAQ, mega caps taking it on the chin. Apple down $4 right now. Amazon down 80 after a really nice run after their split announcement. And oil also pretty significantly down, although it is taking a little bit of a turnaround. But, just about everything is, we're kind of looking at a sea of red outside of the financials and a little bit of retail. So not a great day for the S&P by any means. And so, yeah, I mean, it is definitely kind of an ugly one. And I'm wondering, how far can we go today? We have a whole host of major things happening this week. This is a week of complete fireworks. Tomorrow, on a Tuesday, we have VIX expiration. Remember, because of Good Friday, VIX is going to expire on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. Then we have the Federal Reserve on Wednesday, which, who knows what's going to happen there. And we are it is quadruple witching, Mark. And we all know that that has been, for the last 2 quarters, really bad. Expirations in general have been bad for markets. And quadruple witching in September was abysmal. December, it started a big selling. Liquidity tends to dry up a little bit. I'm very interested to see what direction markets take over the next few days, especially heading into the Federal Reserve, where who knows what they're going to say? Are they going to surprise? Markets just are not sure in general what's going to happen, and you can kind of tell. We've got a pretty decent sized range in the S&P. It was up as much as 39 points at one point. It's now down 22. Maybe it's heading for 41.75, maybe 41.50. VIX is up. It's back to $32. We could see maybe a run at 35 heading into expiration. It's going to be very, again, lots going on, plenty of potential fireworks this week.
So what you're saying is that the markets already had enough fuel for the fire. They didn't need extra catalysts like, Ukraine and China just lighting a match to everything this week, sir.
Yeah, I mean, people are like, Ukraine caused this selling. Ukraine caused the oil to go to 110, 120, 130. Listen, all these things were going to happen. It's just Ukraine was a catalyst to make that happen. Though we've been in VIX backwardation now for a month. Without really, Mark, a major like selling day. You know what I mean? Like, we haven't had any real feel of panic. It's just been kind of this slow, ugly bear market malaise. And I keep waiting for that kind of us to have like a real day of selling so that maybe we can establish a base, and we are unable to do it.
Well, we had the day of selling last Tuesday, and then it was immediately erased when the S&P rallied, and then they sold off again. So I guess we kind of had 2 days worth of selling in one if you factor it all in. But that was just so outlandish. I don't even know what category to put that in. Probably one of the craziest whipsaws I've ever seen, certainly in the broad S&P. We've seen them in like biotechs or a rare commodity every now and then, but in the S&P, you don't tend to see that very often. So that was certainly impressive. Let's see if the numbers are impressive. You mentioned Apple, of course. Foxconn having to shut down. I mentioned that. Foxconn, of course, one of those city-sized manufacturing facilities over there in China that pretty much makes all the Apple devices you know and love. So when they shut down, Apple's going to take a bit of a hit because you can't get your iPads and your iPhones and everything else you guys love to buy for extremely inflated prices from Apple. And hey, I'm a victim. I got a new iPad last year as well. I'm not really an iOS guy, but I still keep in the iPad realm out there. In fact, they run some of our stuff here in the studio. So yes, I laugh, but we bought overpriced Apple stuff as well. So we're in the camp. Speaking of that action-packed camp out there today, things are looking pretty frothy out there. If I just saw these numbers, if I wasn't able to look at the broad market, I would say, man, we're probably in the grips of a pretty firm, pretty aggressive sell-off right now. And that, of course, is the case in the NASDAQ, not so much in the other big indices, but VIX is looking like, we're melting down right now. VIX has already done 582,000 contracts. That's almost a full day's worth of paper. The ADV is at about 606 right now. So things are popping off in the VIX. Let's look really quickly and just see if we could see what the 82,000 of the June 21 puts have gone up against they're doing back to that old upside. But looks like it's straight 1-to-1 now, Mark, today. 82,000 of the June 21 70 risk reversal went up this morning.
Wow.
Or maybe that's a strangle. If they're buying the 70s, I more power to them, I guess. But wow. That's where that paper is coming from. 160,000 contracts in that one trade. Looks like they did it for 64 cents. Oh, yeah, they actually had, wow. That's all you can say is wow. Looks like also April 4070 went up about 24,000 times as well. So folks got 70s on the brain, listeners, which usually when the 70s start lighting up, which they have been for the last, week or two, 75s as well, it's not good for society. And that's kind of what we got going on right now. So if you're wondering where those VIX numbers are coming from, that's it, listeners. 160,000 right there in the June 21 70. What would you think about that? You like that one, listeners? Would you want to sell those 21s to buy the 70s? Right now, the 70s are worth almost 2x the 21 puts right now. So you're not getting a hell of a lot of juice for those 21s anymore. Wow, you actually haven't. That's wow. Or is that would you do that as a strangle? That'd be an insane strangle. The way this went up, you could kind of argue it for a couple of different ways. But wow, that's what we're in right now, listeners. The 70s are in play, which is perhaps terrifying. SPY 3.7 million contracts, so also lighting it up. 7.41 million contracts on the tape. That's the ADV right now. So not quite, a little bit quieter in SPY than it is in the VIX. Clearly no funky risk reversals or strangles going up in SPY right now. The S putting up some numbers, though, closing in on 1 million contracts, about 940,000 contracts right now. You know, when the S is hitting around 1 million at this time, that things are lighting it up a little bit. The ADV about 1.7 million out there. And small caps doing a whole heck of a lot of nothing right now. 350,000 contracts on the tape right now. That's interesting. So small caps, they're off nearly 2% today, 1.86%. So you can't say they're not moving, just not really putting up the numbers. The ADV out there is 826,000 contracts. That's interesting because small caps have kind of been a bit of a canary in the coal mine lately. Right now they're moving, just not putting up the numbers right now. Let's see what's going on from an overall most active perspective. Let's look at the top 10 out here right now, see what's lighting it up. And again, if I looked at these numbers, you know, irrespective of everything else going on out there, I would say maybe it's a little bit of an active day, but nothing really crazy. It only cost you 195,000 contracts right now to break into the top 10. That's not the sky is falling type of day. And also the names that are in here, not exactly sky is falling types of names, like AMC back in our top 10 today, listeners, with 195,000 contracts. What are they up to today? They're up off 5%, trading right around 13.5, off about 75 cents or so today. But good enough for 195,000. AMC is always pretty active. So when they manage to fight their way into the top 10, that usually tells me not a lot else going on out there. But apparently that's what we got today. We got AMC number 10. Number 9, Sirius XM. Again, these are not sky is falling names that you would normally see. China melting down, Ukraine, Fed concerns, whatever it is. These are not the names you usually see lighting it up as a result. So that's why it's a little weird. Sirius XM, we talked about them recently. They're back in the top 10 today. They're kind of unched today. Not a huge move. Looks like they had a bit of a range. They sold off to about, looks like their low for the day was 612, and they're at 617 right now, so not a big deal. But they're good for 201,000 contracts, so someone's putting up some numbers out there today. Let's look really quickly. Do they have earnings? I don't know what's driving this paper, but a lot of paper in Sirius. Number 8 out there. Now we're up to 206,000 contracts. Listeners, this is Pfizer, up about 3.7%, or good for 206,000 contracts today. Number 7, that's actually kind of low for them, is NVIDIA, only 210,000 contracts. I always say AMD and NVIDIA are usually locked around that 3 to 4 spot, but not today. Something's managing to push down NVIDIA. Let's see what it is. Number 6, our old friend Bank of America, back in the top 10 today, 213,000 contracts. You mentioned financials earlier, Mark. That's kind of strange as well, because we were talking last week on the Odd Block. In fact, I can't wait to pay them off maybe on Thursday. Was all this weekly paper, all this downside put paper in Deutsche Bank and Credit Suisse. So people were looking for the apocalypse out there, and yet the Dow, led by financials, is one of the few things that's up today. So weird days, and Bank of America is in our top 10. Let's see what a Bank of America is up to right now. Bank of America up 2.25%. So we were looking for the end of the world for financials coming into this week, and so far we're getting a nice lift. 213,000 contracts, number 6 for Bank of America. Number 5, it's NEO. You got to have some EV somewhere in the top 10. Today it's NEO, 275,000 contracts. Number 4, so holding on to its usual spot, is AMD, 280,000 contracts. Let's see what they're up to out there really quickly. 101.66. So off about 2.5% today. Number 3, it's BABA. We all know China in a bit of flux out there right now. Let's see, off 10.5%, 77.70 out there right now. Good for number 3, 310,000 contracts. Number 2, it's Tesla, 681,000 contracts. Actually pretty light for Tesla out there right now. They're off 35 handles almost, about 4.3%, so taking a nice beating out there today. And then number 1, even though with a kind of light bullet today, it's Apple, only 810,000 contracts. Apple having a rare sell-off day, off 2.5%, or about 4 handles. A little bit north of the 150 level right now, about 150 3/4 out there. But good enough for number 1. You know what? Let's look at some of the earnings numbers. There are still some earnings names popping off this week. We got Dole, so maker of all your favorite canned fruits, on Tuesday. Got Land's End on Wednesday. Williams Sonoma, easy for me to say. Leonard and Guess Thursday, Dollar General, so Uncle Mike's favorite fashion plate, as well as FedEx. Oh, a name you may have heard of called GameStop. And, our old friend Stone Cold. Someone got angry on Twitter when they heard us saying Stone Cold. And they said, it's Stone Co., not Stone Cold. And I had to explain to them, that's the joke. It's Stone Cold. Clearly, they're not longtime listeners of the show. But when you have to explain the joke, it usually falls flat. So, yes, listeners, that is a joke. We know it is not called Stone Cold. It is called Stone Co. But how much cooler is it to call it Stone Cold? But I digress. All right, let's keep on rolling out to some of the earnings move reports. We got move results before the bell today for Ballard Power. There's another one of those proton fuel cell names. Fuel cells, they're on again, they're off again. Seem like they're maybe on again a little bit right now. I think Hyundai's got a fuel cell card coming out and a few others. There's some talk about some fuel cells. Of course, I think there's only something like 50 or 100 fuel cell filling stations in the entire country. So that's kind of a bit of a downside. I was looking at, I think the Consumer Reports was reviewing one recently, and they had to get it from California. They had to have it shipped on a truck because there were not enough fueling stations to drive it from California to where they're based in Connecticut. So we're still not there yet from an infrastructure perspective, but it does seem like fuel cells are the hot thing every couple of years, and right now they're hot again. Ballard Power, they were popping off before the bell today. They were at about $11 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 12.5%, and they delivered, as of this report this morning, $10.5 was where they were at. They were off about nearly 5%. So hot off the presses from our friends over there at ORATS, and they're selling off even more now, down $0.75 or about 7%. So apparently the future was fuel cells, and maybe right now, maybe the bloom is back off the rose of, at least for Ballard Power, that appears to be the case. Season-wise, we're still kind of running the numbers for last season to get it all finalized. So go check out the website, theoptioninsider.com. Our new reports are kind of looking ahead now to the new season, so we don't really have things, even though we have 14 names reporting so far for this new season, and we're up at 146% of what has been priced in so far. So strong times, but it won't hang out there for long. Looking back at the last 3 years and averaging up all 12 cycles there, we're hovering at about an average of 83%. So underperformance still. Again, the pandemic was a story of nonstop underperformance. So we're still there right now. Right now, the worst week to buy vol in any earnings cycle is week 2. That week is averaging 44% right now. So not even back half of your money. So if you buy vol in week 2 of earnings cycle, you're going to probably lose a lot of money. And it looks like the best week in terms of performance is right now, week 1, 88%. So that's the closest you're coming to breaking even right now. It's week 1, 88%, week 2, 44%, week 3, 61%, week 4, 66%, week 5, 69%, week 6, 53%. Ugh, ugly. And then it averages out to about 83% out there. So, yeah, still not looking like a vol buyer's market, but intriguing stuff. No new earnings trades reports hitting the tape right now, but there's, again, a litany of ones that they're tracking you could look at and pay off over there at theoptionsinsider.com. Let's look at a couple really quickly before we roll on into the odd block in terms of upcoming earnings, because you do have some new ones here. I mentioned Dole. All of you looking out for the fruit vol right now. They're popping off tomorrow before the bell. They're at about $13.5 right now. Wow, they're pricing in $0.75. In the past, they've moved 3 cents. Wow, that's a premium seller's dream come true right there. They're trading $13.10 right now, so they have given up the ghost a little bit today. But yeah, in past earnings cycles, they have done a whole heck of a lot of nothing. That's impressively little. Dollar General, 17th before the bell. They're at 205.5. They're pricing in nearly $12. In the past, they moved $9.32, so a little bit, actually a lot of extra ball in Dollar General. FedEx, we know all things logistics are in a tizzy right now. They're on the 17th after the bell. 213.20 is where they were trading. And in the past, let's see, they've moved $14.10, so extra juice out there. Kind of hard to argue that's not warranted. GameStop, who knows what the hell to expect from this name anymore. They're on the 17th after the bell as well. They were trading $92.70 as of this report. They're pricing in $11.63. In the past, they've moved $13.72. So a little bit less juice out there, but again, maybe that's a good thing given how just extremely overwrought, to put it mildly, GameStop has been out there of late. It looks like Sirius announced on Friday that they're having an exclusive podcast deal. It looks like they're acquiring Revolver Podcast, something along those lines. So there we go. That's why everyone's getting into the podcast game. Hey, better late than never. We were doing this, 15 odd years ago. But hey, everyone's late to the party, but welcome. The water's nice as we keep on rolling right on into the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
Everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we break down the weird, the wild, the wondrous, the whimsical paper that's lighting up the tape. Looks like our chatter all sharing their memories of Razor Ramon as well. Unlimited saying, I used to love Razor Ramon as well. I would mimic the toothpick thing and flick it around too. I could just see little kids running around with all the toothpicks. I'm sure the mothers thought it was cool to have their kids doing all that, which of course I'm sure they did. But that's part of the fun of wrestling, right? Moms don't like it. All right, let's keep on rolling out there to the land of unusual activity. Let's see what the Eye of Sauron has fixed its fiery gaze upon this week. Let's kick it off. Like we got some newcomers here to the Odd Block, which is always kind of fun. Let's kick things off here in Post. Post Holdings out here. They make, cereal and a bunch of stuff, listeners. Ticker symbol, appropriately enough, Post. Trading right now 66 and about 3/4. So looks like actually kind of unched on the day today. Not a huge move right now. Anyway, they had a little bit of a range today, but nothing crazy. Let's look at their range for the year. A year ago, Post was almost where it is right now. Kind of a bit of a lost year for them. They were trading $68 a year ago. I said they're 66 and 3/4 right now. So off a little bit on the year. They rallied in May of last year. They got up to 76.81 before selling off hard in August down to close to where they are again right now, 64.82. Then they rallied hard again, 76.25 in August, like a week later. And then they kept selling off for a couple of months back down to November where they hit, December 1st, where they hit 62.08. And then rallying hard again to... No, they're telling me the high for the year is 118, but I don't see that anywhere on this chart. So I'm not sure. Maybe they had a crazy intraday print up to 118 somewhere. They hit the high 70s 3 times. That's about as high as I see. January 14th, they came into the year about $77 again before pretty much selling off over the course of the past couple of weeks. They hit about 63.79 last week before rallying now to about 67 and 3/4. So up about $3 over the course of the past week. But other than that, it's been kind of a topsy-turvy year for Post Holdings, kind of netting out to a whole bunch of nothing on the year. If you held this stock all last year, you kind of got a whole bunch of nothing for it. Let's see what we got going on out there today with our Eye of Sauron spotted. Looks like our Eye of Sauron is looking at a little bit of the old put love. Maybe somebody is a little bit spooked and they're trying to stop themselves out throughout the rest of the year, and they decided to do so at an interesting strike, the 50 strike. Because someone came in, looks like they scooped 7,500 of the Dees 50 puts for $2.05 on pretty much right on the offer there, right on the open there this morning. The stock was right around here, $67, pretty much even. So these are about 25% out of the money puts right now. Of course, there are earnings between now and December. The next announcement is on May 5th. So you're getting a couple of cycles for this, but still, that's about a 40 vol, if you're wondering, by the way, 39.7 vol listeners. So that's a fair amount of premium. That's a fair amount of vol. You're getting a whole year's worth of protection. But then again, when you're buying your puts well below the 52-week low, are you really getting that much protection at that point? You've already given up the year and then some. These kind of trades always make me kind of scratch my head. I guess at a certain point you want to just cut your risk. And so if it gets down to 50, you're done. But yeah, I don't know about this one. Mr. Meatball, what are your thoughts on Post Holdings making its way into our odd block for the first time, and then someone buying pretty much 1 year out, pretty far out of the money puts for a fair amount of juicer?
I love me some Post Holdings. I'm assuming this is the cereal company.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you more a Kellogg's or a Post cereal kid?
Oh, I'm a big fan of Count Chocula, and I think that's General Mills, which is another one that we've been seeing.
Yes.
So I'm on neither of them, but I like Kellogg's Raisin Bran with its 2 scoops better than I like the Post Raisin Bran. I will say that. Yeah, this is an interesting one, and the Post does not trade very often, so. This year, I think you're right. It's just somebody saying, let's make sure we don't lose our shirt here and putting up a trade. Did this just list? What is the story here? Because there is no volume in this thing.
Yeah, it is kind of a non-entity from that perspective. You're right. I was looking at some of the numbers, and my data's a little weird because it's showing me weird highs and lows for the year that I'm not seeing on this graph. So it could be a newer addition. I have data going back to last March though, so we got at least a year on this thing. So yeah, this is a bit of a weird one. That could be another reason why it's never been in our odd block before. But yeah, not a lot of paper here for Post. What's your cereal company favorite for your childhood listeners? Hit us up. Let us know. Are you Post? Are you a Kellogg's? Are you, I guess, General Mills? Yeah, there are a lot of big cereal players. I was thinking there are 2, but there are 3. What's your cereal brand of choice? Hit us up. Let us know. A lot of good cereals in the 80s as well. I'm sure Mr. Meatball, probably a big fan of Mr. T's cereal. I'm not sure who made that one, Mr. Meatball, but I'm guessing a lot of your Saturday mornings were filled with Mr. T's Crunch, or whatever it was called.
Oh, well, who doesn't love Mr. T was a good one. We all love that scene from Pee-wee's Big Adventure when he's pouring Mr. T on his pancakes. I was always a big fan of, Smurfberry Crunch. I like the Captain Crunch. If it had the word crunch in it, I was on board. That was usually the way I was wired when it came to eating my breakfast cereals. But no, again, my favorite of all time will always be one Count Chocula, which only now comes out around Halloween.
I say it's just a Halloween cereal now, so you must stock up for the year.
It used to be around year round, but then now it's only around on Halloween, which makes me sad.
Yeah, I'm looking here for a Post. It says the ADV is 357 contracts, so not a lot of paper on this name. So yeah, 7,500 from that perspective, listeners, is a ton.
That's a huge trade.
That's a huge trade. So some institution is sitting on a bunch of Post, and maybe they're a little spooked right now. Maybe they're not seeing the Count Chocula love that they used to back in the day. Either way, we'll keep an eye on Post. Going to be a while till we come back to this one. This is December, but what are your thoughts? Long-term puts in a cereal maker and other packaged goods? Hit us up. Let us know. If that wasn't enough P-named newcomers to the odd block, then we got you covered here with another one. Again, kind of showing you what a weird day it is, listeners. All this stuff's going on, global, geopolitical, and this is kind of what's lighting up our Eye of Sauron. Weird day. But we've got PRCH Group. PRCH Group, Inc. Ticker symbol PRCH, PRCH. They make porches? Now, this is the holding company that owns American Holding Corp., which is also a generic name if ever there was one. So PRCH Group, Inc. right now. Trading a whopping $6.14. They are off $13 today, or 68%. My goodness. So whatever PRCH Group does and American Holding Corp., they're not doing it very well, apparently. Let's see. Let's look at the sordid tail of the tape for this one. I'm going to guess we say puts out here, but maybe not. You never know. Things are weird out here. Let's see. A year ago, this thing was trading $19.29. So they've given up the ghost a little bit, and they sold off. That was back obviously in March of last year. They sold off down to about $12.60, and that was pretty much the low for the year until $12.13 actually in April. Then they rallied again up to 22, almost $23 in September. Sold off again to about $15.70 in October, and then rallied to their high for the year in November 16th, right around $27.50. And pretty much ever since then, it's like they just took a knife to this thing. They just cut the legs out. This thing has been pretty much nothing but straight down ever since November 16th. My goodness. It went from 27.5 in November to by December 3rd, it was trading $17.70. So down about $10. And then by January 26th, it was down to $9.15. And now over the last couple of months, it's given up another $3. I'm not sure what today's sell-off then of $13.15 comes from, because I'm looking at this chart is, let's see, what do we got today? Yeah, it's showing me weird numbers for maybe my data is just screwy today. But either way, it's had a rough, rough year and rough, really couple of months here since November. Here, let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out here. And you might think, given all this action, that it was puts, but actually, no, listeners. It looks like somebody was opening an upside out of the money call vertical, which again, that goes to show why we call it the odd block, listeners. It was the 7.5, 10 call vertical going up. At first, I thought it might be a roll because this name's been clipped pretty aggressively. So maybe coming down from the 10s to the 7.5s. But no, it's opening on both legs. So this is just a straight up opening 7.5, 10 call vertical going up 5,000 times. Looks like they bought the 7.5s for 20 cents, lifted the offer. They sold the 10s for a whopping penny, which at that point, why are you even bothering? But hey, I digress. Doing that 5,000 times, obviously for 19 cents here. Opening, like I said, on both legs. That is a 191 vol on the 7.5s, listeners. If you are curious, there are earnings, but they're outside of this cycle. The next earnings are in May. So it looks like they already have announced recently, which maybe that's some of the recent vol we've seen out here in this name. Either way, this is a bit of a strange one, Mr. Meatball. A lot of reasons. First off, this name's been getting annihilated and someone's scooping an out-of-the-money call vertical. That's kind of interesting in and of itself. The second part is that they paid a whopping nearly 200 vol for this thing. The third is that they even bothered to sell the 10s for a penny. I mean, you're in for a penny, in for a pound, pun intended at that point. Might as well give yourself more upside if you're going to do this thing. So a lot to unpack. What are your thoughts on this funky vertical in everyone's favorite name, PRCH Group Inc.?
Yeah, that's I never understand some of the closing of stuff for a penny. And this is an open. It's a little weird. I guess they just wanted to save the $5,000 on the trade. That's the best I can think of. I don't know that I would have executed it that way. Definitely a love your broker kind of trade. But someone looking for a quick move here, aren't they?
That would seem to be the case. Is there ever a scenario where you would sell a 5,000 lot for I know you want the $5,000, but if you're going to do this spread, would you ever give up one leg for a penny?
I suppose when I was a market maker, if it was going to relieve margin pressure off of my book, I would unload them. Nothing, it sounds silly, but the charge for holding in haircut is minimum of 25 cents or 2.5 cents. So if I sell 5,000 of these at a penny, I free up, on top of the $5,000 I collect, I free up, a decent amount of haircut. But that would be the only reason. I don't really particularly love getting the penny on those. I don't, don't fully understand it. But hey, that's the way people. That's his prerogative or her.
By the way, if you're wondering, PRCH Group bills itself as the vertical software platform for the home, for whatever that means. They announced a deal also with ATI Home Inspectors recently. Apparently, the market does not like that deal because they're crushing this thing. So, yeah. Wow. PRCH Group. That's why I love the Odd Block, listeners, where you learn about so many new fun names. And we're going to keep that trend going. I think we're 3 for 3. This might be the first time in a while we're 3 for 3. With newcomers, because if PRCH Group and other P-related names like Post are not doing it for you, listen, let's jump to the beginning of the alphabet. Let's go to AZEK Company. This is actually out of Chicago by way of Skokie here, apparently. It doesn't say what they're building products. AZEK Building Products. Okay. AZEK Company, ticker symbol AZEK, AZEK, trading pretty much $24 exactly, off about $0.50 or about 2%. Today, let's see, on the year, it's another one that's come under a lot of pressure this year. A year ago, it was trading more than double, actually almost double. They were trading a little bit shy of 46, 45.81. They're at about 24 right now, but they quickly were more than double than that. By April 27th, they were trading 51 and change. That's pretty much their high for the year as well. 51.32 is their high for the year. They got there in April. Then they sold off pretty hard. They got down to about 35.25 on July 19th. Then they tried to rally again. By December, they got up to about 46.25 before that was December 31st. So literally the end of the year. And then ever since then, it's been just a series of body blows to this name. They went from about $46 in December to on January 27th. So later, they were 29.78. Then in February, they got down to, looks like 26.79. And pretty much right now, they're right around their 52-week low. The 52-week low is $23.5. They're 24.09 right now. So they probably hit that low today. Let's see. Yeah, they did. They hit that low 10.05 this morning. They set their 52-week low. So not a good time here for AZEK. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out here. Oh, you know what? Kind of a similar trade. And it doesn't have the vestigial nonsense penny leg to it. It's just someone coming out and just saying, you know what? I think maybe this sell-off is a wee bit overdone. I'm going to scoop this bad boy because they came in and again bought the marches 3,375 times. I don't have the ADV numbers in front of me, but I'm going to guess that's probably a pretty big print for everyone's favorite name, AZEK. Yes, the ADV is 1,390. So this is close to 3x their entire day's worth of volume in one print. We've got the March 25s going up 3,375 times for 50 cents today. So just lifting the offer. They weren't playing around. They weren't trying to get them for 40 or 40. Nope. They just said, hey, we're going to pay 50 cents. That's an 85.5 vol, listeners. And let's see. There are no earnings this one. The next earnings are in May 5th. And I'm looking here to see if anything else is traded today. Not much. It's like some 35s in June 35 quarter has gone up 400 times today as well. So a little bit of a vertical there as well. So we're getting a lot of action on the 25 strike. SEP 25s, April 25s. 25s across the board are trading out here today in AZEK. So some folks maybe thinking this sell-off is a bit overdone, or the same guy is going out to different months, but nowhere near as much size. This is the biggest print. He's done a total of 5,000 now, 5,100 of these March 25. So he's seriously got an axe to grind here. Mr. Meatball, we've seen this play a few times before, a name that's been pretty beaten up, someone coming in to scoop some upside. Again, they're not playing for long, though. They're paying 50 cents for what is effectively a weekly now, sir. What are your thoughts here on everyone's favorite, yet another newcomer to the odd block, AZEK company?
Yeah, that's another one. This is another one I've never heard of. But yeah, they're just going after a cheap call option, looking for a move higher. This has some open interest in March calls to the upside as well, so could be a play on materials and builders getting a little pop later in the week. They're not that far out of the money, and the stock is down 36 cents. So you get a little pop. These could pay off. Little strange they're going so short dated, but hey, again, you got to play to win, I suppose, and that's what this is.
Is this one going to go in your big money flow, sir?
You know what? This could go in my big money flow. I'll tell you, the PRCH Group, 100%. For 15 cents, the amount of volume that is trading there is absolutely bananas. We talked about the 5,000 lot, but there's been another 1,400 or so that have traded since that trade went up. So there is definitely some interest in those PRCH Group calls. AZEK not showing the same follow through on these calls, but keep an eye on those. Maybe they're already up money. Current market is 55.70, so they could get out for 12 cents right here and walk away with a cool what is that, $60,000? That'll buy you a used Cadillac now because car prices are so expensive.
That'll get you like the door on a used Cadillac right now. Yeah, I'm looking at another 1,400 right of the PRCH 7.5. So not so much. They're not selling the 10s this time. They're just straight up buying the 7.5s for 1,400 more, which I can get behind that a little more, I guess. Than if you're gonna buy them. Don't sell them for a penny. But yeah, this is a trifecta, if you will, listeners, of A, newcomers to the odd block, B, kind of weird paper all over the place, long-term puts, and some very near-dated verticals and call love here. What do you think of these names? You on board with any of these, listeners? Hit us up, let us know. Meanwhile, it is time for us to keep on rolling. It is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, listeners, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on our screens for the rest of this week until we can gather here together on Thursday's episode. Look, Monday, no strategy block. Who needs Uncle Mike? We fill a whole show without him, listeners. By the way, our chat hot and heavy right now, going back and forth. We've started something with the what's your favorite cereal debate, because they're going back and forth. Honey Bunches of Oats, and people talking about the Bojack Cinnamon Toast Squares for the Bears. I guess there's some Bears options queen, obviously a Bears fan. Oh, a cooking tip. If you're baking something that requires milk, let the milk sit in Cinnamon Toast Crunch for a few hours first to soak up that flavor. So there you go. A little bit of a baking tip. Our chat full of great pro tips out there. If I
like that tip.
If I drank a lot of milk, if I was able to, then I would certainly go that way. But intriguing stuff. Speaking of intriguing stuff and also maybe silly stuff, we started off some dark stuff. Let's go a little sillier to end the show here. We had a fun question over the weekend because everyone's going crazy right now for all things Batman because of the Batman. Critics love it. Audience, I did have a chance to see it. I'll let Mr. Meatball say what he thinks if he saw it first. But we asked you, if you thought a fun question for the weekend. We do some options breaks polls over the weekend, listeners. We thought, hey, what's your favorite Batman movie? We gave you 4 choices: The Dark Knight, the Batman 1989 one with Michael Keaton, the Batman, the current one, or Batman Begins. So, Mr. Meatball, A, have you seen The Batman? If so, what are your thoughts? And then B, what is your favorite Batman movie, sir?
Well, how are you excluding the George Clooney, Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Oh God, the freeze! I must freeze
Silverstone.
them. That when my little guy was little, that was like his favorite Batman. He loved it because it's for like 5-year-olds, right?
Well, if Batman doesn't have nipples, it's not my Batman.
Tight butt cheeks and nipples in the costume.
Oh yeah, no. You know, I actually didn't hate Batman Forever with the Val Kilmer one with Jim Carrey. It was funny, but you know, the Dark Knight and that whole thing with Christian Bale, those are just so good. Third one's a little weird, but the first 2 are just awesome. So, I got to go that route. And the Joker that iteration of the Joker was just so good.
It was amazing. Yes.
It's hard.
Just rewatched it this weekend because I took my son. He's getting into Batman, so we went and saw The Batman in theaters. Hardcore movie. Up to you if you want.
I haven't seen it yet.
We went to saw it last weekend. The Batman is awesome. It's up there. I
really?
like myself a little bit of a darker Batman, and that's why Dark Knight is still my favorite because we watched them film a lot of that, like that Joker and Joker and Batman fight scene on LaSalle takes place like 2 blocks from the studio here. Heath Ledger scared my wife during the filming. He walked by when he had the hood on. They hadn't revealed his appearance yet, so they were leading him down the street with the hood over. When we were watching him film, and he came out and scared. I mean, so we watched him film that epic showdown on LaSalle where they're shooting the rockets, and there was actually a helicopter flying between buildings. We watched him make all that. So The Dark Knight has a special kind of resonance for us. And I just watched it again this weekend, so that is truly a masterpiece. But the new one is really good. If you were telling me that is your favorite Batman, I wouldn't hold it against you. I'm not a Keaton guy. Looks like our audience agrees, 52.5% for The Dark Knight. Batman 89 coming in, too. They like themselves some Keaton at almost 24%. The Batman, the new one at 19%. Only 4.8% for Batman Begins. That's just a fun one. It's expiring right now, so get in there if you haven't, listeners. But Mr. Meatball, I digress, sir. What is lighting up your tape for the rest of this week? Obviously, you said it's a big week. What is on your radar?
Yeah, as I said, we got VIX expiration on Tuesday. We have the Federal Reserve on Wednesday. We have quadruple witching on Friday. This is just going to be liquidity during quadruple witching, and maybe we can get into that more on vol views about what actually happens or during option block. But liquidity dries up because the market may, you know this, you were in the SPX. You're spending so much time trying to roll March into June that, you kind of get distracted and your liquidity dries up a little bit, and it can open up the market to some pretty strong swings. So be on the lookout this week, folks.
So you have the normal reasons to be on the lookout, listeners, which is, of course, all the madness that is afoot in the world. By the way, how crazy is it that we're here in the U.S., we're opening it up, masks are going away, we're pretending like it's not a thing here, and then in China, they're doing the exact opposite, locking down 30 million people. It's just crazy times that we live in. The old Chinese proverb / curse, right? May you live in interesting times. We are certainly all living through them. By the way, it's like our chat is in on the Dark Knight. They're saying Dark Knight. So what are your thoughts? We'll have our actual question of the week up in a little bit, listen. Just a fun one from the week. We thought everyone could use a bit of a break from the madness out there right now. But you know what, listeners? If you want a break from our content, you're not getting it. We're going to have a little bit of a hiatus right now, but we'll be back in a little bit to talk the crypto rundown. So if you're listening live, just stay tuned. If you're listening after the fact, just hit next on your device of choice. It'll be there. We'll be joined by our old pal, Mr. Bill, to break down all the madness and the volatility of all things Bitcoin. And Mr. Meatball, if folks want to hit you up to talk 80s cereal, 80s wrestling, Batman movies, or perhaps a little bit of Vol, where should they go? What should they do?
Go to options.com. I'm putting out content every day on VIX, on macro. Go to options.com. Read our blogs every day. You will not be sad.
And yeah, maybe in your neck of the woods in like a month and change out there for the Options Industry Conference. The whole options industry coming to your doorstep, Mr. Meatball. You going to be going?
That's exciting. I didn't know that was coming, but you're only going to be 90 minutes for me, so we're going to have to get together when you're in town. I'll make it a point to try and come down and we'll try and get together. We'll do something.
At the very least, we'll do like a live op block or option block or something from there.
Yeah, for sure. That'll be great.
That should be fun.
And then, I'm in Chicago the following week, so you're going to be doing the option block live from my conference, I believe, in May.
Oh, back to back! Look at that, back to back meatballs. It's a lot of meatball listeners.
Will be in town too, so you'll have the whole experience.
Ooh, full option pit experience! Wow. As I live and breathe, listeners. Well, stay tuned for all that goodness coming soon to the network, listeners. Meanwhile, we got to get on out of here. So we'll be back in a little bit less than an hour to talk all things crypto rundown. Then back again tomorrow. Another great pro Q&A in store for everybody there tomorrow, listeners, in the secret club out there. We've got, we're getting into the trading psychology with Randy Howell. Haven't really talked about that yet in the pro Q&A, so that's kind of a fun topic. Going to get into all that, so get your questions in now for that. That should be really fascinating. Of course, Wednesday, we've got Options Bootcamp, Options Playbook Radio, your double dose of education. Then we're back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.